Okay, awesome. So welcome all of you to our second Tehama and North State Field Day. Hello. Those of you who have your cameras off, I would love it if you would turn your cameras on if your internet allows. I know sometimes that's a little bit of a hiccup, but yeah, but perfect.
My internet's bad right now.
Okay, thanks, Angel. That's okay. I understand. I kind of live in one of those no man's lands too. So that's all I could do. Today's been one of those technology not good days. But awesome. Well, I hope you guys are you guys all ready for Halloween? Who actually thinks Halloween is awesome? Can you guys give me a thumbs up? Thumbs up, loves Halloween, doesn't love Halloween. Who's dressing up? Who's dressing up? Don't know. Yay, that's super fun. Put in the chat box what you guys are dressing up as. I'd love to know. So as you know, I have little ones. And so I have my little girl's gonna be some character from the Descendants. And my little boy is going to be a Nerf guy. And my littlest one is gonna be a pumpkin. So they're all excited about it and it should be a fun year. And I see Mary Pat is out in her pumpkin patch. So today we are going to talk to Mary Pat. And I went out to her pumpkin patch last week, I guess it was. I've been out twice now and enjoyed beautiful weather out there. So all your kits, your pumpkins were hand-picked from Mary Pat's pumpkin patch, the Petersen sisters pumpkin patch. So it's going to be fun. So we're going to hear from her a little bit about why she has a patch. But those of you that do not know Mary Pat, she actually is an alumni to Farms. She went to Mercy High School, graduated from Mercy, and she did Farms Leadership with me for a year, and then she did Farms Advanced for a year. So I've gotten to know her well, and we've stayed in good contact, which is awesome. So I'm going to let her share a little bit about herself and what she's doing nowadays that she's graduated high school. And Mary Pat, I'd love for you to kind of tell everybody what was your biggest takeaway from Farms? Because I think, you know, as they're starting their first year with Farms, and of course, this is kind of an unprecedented time. So we obviously aren't used to this virtual platform, but we're making the best of it. And those of you that are showing up, I'm really appreciating. So yeah, so Mary Pat, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of introduce yourself, and then I'll share my video that we made or that I made, and you can kind of talk about the pumpkin patch and stuff as that's going. So, and we can pause that and get going.
Absolutely.
I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Pat Petersen. Like Miss Baker said, I was a graduate of Farms, and I'm now graduated from high school. Right now, I'm studying political science at Santa Clara, and I run a pumpkin patch. I would probably say that my biggest takeaway from Farms were really two things. One were the connections, that I was able to meet so many people from so many different industries within agriculture here in California. And I think that you don't really understand how helpful that can be in the future, especially if you decide to pursue a career in agriculture. And especially like starting my own pumpkin patch, my sister and I had no idea what we were doing. And we had to rely so much on the other people who are already founded in this industry, who were able to help us, from Lely irrigation to row crop farmers down in Colusa County to even cattle farmers up in Tehama County, who are able to show us kind of the basics of an operation. And I think that that's kind of one of my biggest takeaways from Farms, the Farms program. And another big takeaway is it kind of helped me realize that you honestly, as a student and as an ag student, you have the agricultural world at your fingertips. And it may not seem like it, especially during your freshman year, but there are so many people out here who are willing and ready and waiting to help you. And I think that it's really important to honestly build those connections and make the best of it, because you can honestly accomplish anything when you have the help that you reach out to these people. So I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Perfect. Nice job, Mary Pat. Thanks. Um, so yeah, so you kind of talked about that you and your sister started this pumpkin patch. Why don't you tell us, why did you start a pumpkin patch of all things?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a funny story. So my little brother used to go to the special needs preschool here in Chico, and every year they have a little harvest festival, and they were trying to find somewhere to get pumpkins, and my mom volunteered us to grow pumpkins. So my sister and I used an eighth of an acre in the backyard of my grandparents, and we started a little tiny plot of pumpkins, and we were aiming for somewhere between 80 to 90 pumpkins, and we ended up with over 400. So we spent the entirety of that October filling up my mom's car with pumpkins and just taking them to random people all over Chico and Calusa and Williams, and just begging people to take all of these pumpkins. So after that, my sister and I decided that we would make a business of it, and a property came up for lease right by our house, and we ended up signing a lease contract. And then we started the pumpkin patch, and since then it has grown and evolved in ways that I never would have foreseen. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, okay, so those of you, have any of you guys been down to Petersen Sisters Pumpkin Patch before? Yeah, Miss Cannon has? No. Okay, well, I tell you what, I'm gonna roll a little bit of a video. And let me see, here we go to this whole technology thing. I'm gonna share my screen, and then Mary Pat can kind of take you guys, we can kind of go on a little tour, get a feel for what it's actually like here at Petersen Sisters Pumpkin Patch. Okay. All right. Can you guys see that? Thumbs up? Yes? Okay. So there's not going to be any sound, and I'm just going to let Mary Pat kind of talk about it. So we're going to start here. Super cute sign as you arrive. I don't know, Mary Pat, if you want to talk again a little bit about we'll just kind of enter your pumpkin patch here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's our pumpkin sign, and that's the entrance to our pumpkin patch. And you'll see if you come out here, we have a few different signs like that. And it's just one of the many examples of people that have volunteered to help, things we just never expected, and the help we've gotten from the community. So yeah.
And tell us a little bit about where, you said you started on an eighth of an acre, but this obviously is way more than an eighth of an acre.
Yeah. So we started behind our grandparents, and then this property came up for lease, and it's approximately 7 acres. So we farm about 6.5 acres every year, and we rotate where we plant the different varieties and how much of it we plant, so that we don't overwork the soil. And then that looks like the pumpkin stand, I think. So we started, again, one of the things that's evolved over time, we started with a little tiny tent because we thought that would be good enough, that we could just, have a bunch of people coming in and out of the tent really quick. And then we ended up realizing that the wind in Chico is ridiculous. So our first weekend, we almost all got lifted off the ground in our tent. So we ended up getting one of those stands that you see on the side of the road that they sell in those big plots. So that's another one of our signs. We grow giant pumpkins, and that's one thing we've been developing over the past few years. We've been testing the different strains of giant pumpkins. So we started with Dill's Atlantic Giant, which is a strain of giant pumpkins that's more common on the East Coast. And they've been working out pretty well every year. And then we ended up going with a newer strain that was developed by Seeds by Design. And that's another company that's kind of helped us out and donated seeds over the years. And that's been kind of a process, because they are supposed to be multicolored purple, orange, blue, green, and they've ended up somewhat multicolored, but we have to take a paintbrush and cross-pollinate them with other pumpkins, and it's a lot of work. So like I said, it's been a developing process, something that we've had to rely on seed companies and other row crop farmers over the years who honestly know what they're doing better than we do. So yeah.
Okay, so I have, now it's going to go into some of the varieties of pumpkins, some of those giant pumpkins that you just talked about. I think the pictures are kind of towards the end. But can you, Mary Pat, can you see these pumpkins can you see the pictures as they go, sort of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
So it kind of goes through, maybe just talk about what kinds these are. Oh, here's some of the giant ones.
Yeah, here are some of the giant ones. These are the ones we have up front. And they usually get much bigger, but we learned this year that because of a smoke cover, they didn't get as big, because during their biggest growth period, they got a solid smoke cover for about 10 days. And we learned from other row crop farmers that smoke reduces photosynthesis by 50%, more or less. So yeah, they're not as big this year, but we still have quite a few.
That was a big lesson learned. I mean, and so what are these white ones?
So it looks like the ones on the screen, those are one of our white varieties. Those are the white giants. We have some of the small or white giants, and those are what we use for baking. And then the bigger ones are more of a decorative kind of thing. And they don't get as big as the other giant pumpkins, but they're still fairly decent sized. So.
And what's this one?
That one's a one too many. So we introduced that variety about, I think, year before last. And it's another variety I got from a seed producer out on the East Coast. And it's like a white pumpkin, but it has, the veins are all orange. And so it's almost, I don't know if it's been like a hybrid between the Connecticut field variety and the white pumpkins, or something like that. But that's honestly what we think it is. And they've been a lot more popular this year. So,
and those of you, if you can see in that picture, it has almost like crackles on it. And where those crackles are, it puts out almost like a sap, which is just really interesting to me. It was probably one of my favorite pumpkins when we went out there. So it's amazing. And that's one of the same kind.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So there's some of those smaller white ones, I think, that you told me that you used for baking.
Yeah, so we end up using a puree from the white pumpkins, and then we also use a small sugar baby, those little orange pumpkins that you see, and we use those to make our pumpkin pies our first year. We found out that they ended up being kind of grainy, so we decided to switch over to the more common white pumpkin. And then we started growing Amish pie pumpkins and realized that puree was almost smoother. So, and whereas the white ones were fluffier. So we decided to kind of throw in a mixture of the two for our pumpkin pies so that they're both smooth and fluffy. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I had no idea so much, went into growing these. Okay, and then these you told me, here's some of the baby ones. Oh, I guess the picture didn't show it. What are these warty ones?
Those ones are called warty goblins. So a fun fact about pumpkins is when we first started growing them here in the United States, not like us, but like when they first started growing in the United States, they were actually all warted. And over time, they genetically weeded out the more warty ones so that they can have a smoother base for carving. And then that's how we ended up getting the smooth pumpkins. It's actually not necessarily genetically modified, but over time they naturally selected the ones they didn't want, or the ones they wanted to replant. And that's how we ended up getting the Harvest Jack and the Pumpkin Hobbit kind of pumpkins.
Interesting. That's really kind of interesting. And what about this one?
So that's the same thing. That's also a warty goblin. Some of them have the green warts and some of them have the orange warts. And that'll depend on, number one, their maturity. Number two, the pumpkins they were cross-pollinated with. And number three, just the different nutrients they get and how far along they go. So
Interesting. Very cool. I think they were just so pretty. I mean, the colors are just so vibrant. And what's this?
sorry, I can't really see. I think it's a giant. No, that looks like a Cinderella to me, right? No,
I think
those
it
ones
is.
are the little ones. Sorry. Those ones are the speckled hounds. So that's another variety we started growing last year. And they're kind of interesting because there are so many different variations within that one variety. So they can be like a soft pink, they can be a soft blue, they can be a kind of what we call a cotton candy mixture, they can be green, they can be purple, and it all depends on what they're crossbred with and which ones there are, how much nutrients they get, and how far along they are also. So it's kind of interesting to see all the different types of pumpkins you can have with just one variety. So yeah,
So there's one of
that's
the
been
kind
one
of
of our biggest experiments.
Yeah, there's one of the more blue ones, and before that was one that had been cross-pollinated with a pink one. So the teachers, you got special ones of those.
Yeah.
So Mary Pat, something else that I thought was really interesting when we were out there was when we were digging through the vines, you were showing me some of the different varieties and how some of them just looked so dull and, you know, didn't look like they were going to have any color. But you talked about how you just got to clean them off. And I hadn't thought about the fact that all this on this picture, you guys can see the vines that are kind of dead and they're just decomposing on top of that pumpkin. Well, it's amazing how many beautiful pumpkins are in there. And then when you clean them, you know, they look so yucky and then you clean them off and they're beautiful. So I see a couple of you, somebody's asking questions. Please unmute yourself and go ahead and speak up if you've got a question. We'd love to answer them. When it's just me on here, I can't share my screen and do chat at the same time. So don't hesitate, just unmute yourself and just politely interrupt, and we are happy to answer questions. So here's some of the baby pumpkins that they had. It was really fun just to see the huge variety. Mary Pat, how many varieties of pumpkins are you growing this year?
Oh, geez. I don't know if I could tell you because we have varieties that within them, they're a mixture of varieties. So like one of our white pumpkins, it's called the Moon Shadow Mix, and it's got, I think, 4 varieties within it. So,
okay.
And then we have like the small mixed gourd package that we get from Harris Seed, the large mixed gourd package we get from Harris Seed. So I don't even know if I can tell you a ballpark.
That's okay. Well, and something funny, here's a picture, you guys, what from our last field day last month, we learned about these. Who can politely interrupt and tell me what this is? What kind of squash is this? We talked about it with Bel Campo. Go ahead and anybody? Hannah, tell me.
Spaghetti squash.
Yes, spaghetti squash. Perfect. And I thought it was really funny that we found these, and Mary Pat told me that they were just came up from a previous planting when they had done spaghetti squash. So super fun, the things that you find in a pumpkin patch. So that was really fun. So here, Mary Pat, we're at where, and I thought this was just such a neat idea. And you talked a lot about the different nutrients that the pumpkins. So do you want to give a brief spiel on, I mean, you don't just throw seeds out there, water them, and they grow into these beautiful pumpkins, do you?
No, of course not. So we do have a very strict fertilization process because each of these different varieties does take different nutrients and does require a different amount of different nutrients. So we do have a system set up, and I'm not over by the pump right now, but our 3 main nutrients that we give in are nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, NPK. And we usually try to distribute it evenly between those 3. That way it's not so, the soil isn't So that way the plants aren't relying so heavily upon the soil to get their nutrients and sucking it all out of the soil. We can help supplement that with fertilization. Another thing that we do is our secret thing for our giant pumpkins is we add in like the wholesale tubs of the Miracle Grow. And surprisingly, we found that that works quite a bit. So, and it is important to know how to balance out these different chemicals. And I mean, when my sister and I first started, we didn't really know how to do that. And we had no idea and virtually no resources. And after a while of trying to make connections in the ag industry, not just through farms, but just in general, show up to the water meetings. They're open to the public. And you'll meet so many different people and start collecting business cards, because that's honestly the way to go. We got in contact with a company named Helena Chemical Company, and they were kind of able to show us the basic outline of what a fertilization process should look like. So, and they had reps come out and show us how to apply the different chemicals, how you need to spread them out, dilute them, and the safety measures as to properly handle them. And it's just an entire system that you kind of have to master, but it's something you wouldn't be able to know on yourself. So again, I recommend making those connections because that really saved our butts.
Yeah, well, and that's a really good point. I mean, you know, we talk about farms, all these careers. Okay, so yeah, those farmers that are growing pumpkins, I mean, that is a job in itself to be the actual farmer doing that. But those of you who maybe are interested in like the chemistry side of things, working for those fertilizer companies and all those pharmaceuticals and that type of industry, the farmers, everybody heavily rely on that. So that's a really great field that we could explore more. And again, those people that are come out and help you walk through those ways of writing the plans for your crops. And, you know, it depends on your soil type and everything else, what you're wanting to grow. So that was a really good point, Mary Pat. So tell us, what did you do to these fun pumpkins right here? There's, you know, they have sayings in them.
Oh, right. Yeah. So those are another experiment. When those pumpkins are adolescents, we carve into them with a pocket knife, little messages. And then the pumpkin sends out a little bit of the juice and it heals over time, and it calluses, and then it grows with the pumpkin. So the message will get bigger as the pumpkin grows, and it'll become a part of the pumpkin. And these pumpkins last just as long as the other pumpkins. They just have messages that were carved into them.
So those of you, as we carve our pumpkins, Mary Pat, can they save seeds and plant them next year? Will they grow pumpkins?
It depends on what variety you have, because a lot of times with the pumpkins out here, they're hybrids. So they've been cross-pollinated or they're hybrid seeds. And the reason that's a problem is because the hybrid seeds, the second go around, won't have any useful plants or won't have any useful pumpkins, even if they do sprout. So that's why we usually don't replant or keep the plants that sprout up from the last season. So
Sure.
You can, if you have I think a harvest jack, but that's about it.
Okay. So. Well, cool. Well, next year, guys, you guys could start seeds and then you could make your own little pumpkins like this, and then you don't have to carve them. So here we are. This is me coming out the day that I picked all your pumpkins. So you're going to kind of get a firsthand view of what I had to select through all these pumpkins, digging through, and there you go. Somebody has that pumpkin. It was really fun. Just if you guys haven't actually gone out to a pumpkin patch and gotten to pick, there was 40 pumpkins in the back of my car. I got a full arm workout that day. Mary Pat's like, yep. How many pumpkins do you guys donate a year, do you think?
I don't even know if I could say. Last year we had about 1,000 kids come out for field trips, and each of those kids do get a pumpkin. And I think this year for our virtual field trips, we've had about the same amount, if not maybe a little more. Mom, do you know?
Sorry,
My mom's right over here.
about 1,000, and then like
We also donate to other organizations. So like Sierra Nevada, they usually buy a shipment from us. And then there's a special needs group, the adult special needs group, who come out and pick pumpkins.
assisted living.
And some assisted living groups that do that too. So I don't know if I could give you a ballpark, but yeah,
Sure.
that's
Like
what we
1,000
usually do.
pumpkins or so.
So yeah.
But that's just amazing, the amount that you guys give back to the community. I just think that's really good. Okay, so I'm gonna, there's a few questions in the chat box that I'm gonna ask and see if you can answer. Would smoke affect the flavor, or what if one were to eat them? Is the smoke gonna have affected the flavor of your pumpkins?
I'm not sure if it does. I think it's a minuscule amount, because I mean, I had our pumpkin pies from last year and I had our pumpkin pies from this year, and they're still just as good. But that might be an interesting thing to look at and to research, because we know it affects photosynthesis, the amount of light that they take in, and we know that it affects the growing process. But whether or not it actually affects the taste, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
So.
Allison, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. My question is, what kinds of precautions do you guys have to take so that you make sure you get good pumpkins every year?
Precautions is in like safety precautions, or like backup in case none of our pumpkins.
I guess like both.
So I guess for backup, like I said, making those connections with row crop farmers. So Clay Jacobson is another row crop farmer, and a couple other that are in Colusa County area, so that if we don't have a crop, we can easily reach out to them and say, look, can we get some pumpkins out here? We haven't had to do that yet, but that is one resource we would use if we did have crop failure. And then as for safety precautions out here, there are so many. I mean, it's just hard to explain, because there are so many different facets to farming. And since we're a farm that has people out here to pick pumpkins and to do activities, that's a whole nother level of safety precautions. So sometimes we get black widows out here, so having to warn every single customer plus having signs out has been one of the safety precautions we've had to go through. And then here in this time of COVID, like during the pandemic, we've had to put up mask signs. We've had to get rid of some of our activities and add new ones, and change our hayride, change our the way we let people take pictures and hang out at the stand. It's just been just a process. So yeah.
I love it. Good question. All right, Aiden, ask your question.
Okay, my question was, how do you cross-pollinate your different types of pumpkins?
So I'm gonna be honest, most of it is unintentional. But so for the giants, we usually take special care to cross-pollinate some of them. And the way you do that is you take a paintbrush and you put the paintbrush into one variety that you want the pumpkin to be cross-pollinated with, and then you take the paintbrush over to the female flower from the other variety that you want the pumpkin to grow, that's cross-pollinated with the other variety, if that makes sense. And then usually we take a little piece of twine and we tie off the end of the flower. That way we don't run the risk of it accidentally cross-pollinating with a different variety. But like I said, most of it is unintentional. So what we do is, if we want certain varieties to have a higher tendency to cross-pollinate with other varieties, we plant them closer together. So that's why, for example, we started planting our pinks and our blues closer together, because when they cross-pollinate, they get this really cool cotton candy kind of color, where it's like pink and blue patterns. Another example would be, we planted the speckled hound. Even though they're small, they get the really fancy colors right next to the giant pumpkins. And so this year we've had a lot more colored giants.
That's really fun. Thanks for that, Mary Pat.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions for Mary Pat? Or Mary Pat, do you have anything else that you feel like you would just love to share with us about your patch before we move on to our kits?
Yeah, actually, I think one thing that I would like to go over would be the fact that the ag industry has so many different facets to it. There are just so many different moving parts, even to this one pumpkin patch, like even just to our pumpkin patch. We have the accounting side of it. We have the pest management side of it. We have the fertilizing side of it. We have planning, running equipment, making sure that equipment is updated. We have the irrigation system that we have to have set up. We have even like human resources, selling our butters. Like it's just so many different moving parts. And that's why I think that it's nice to have a diverse team. So for example, we had a kid who was going to be an accounting major. He came out and he helped us do all of our accounting last year. We had a kid who wanted to do drones, build agricultural drones or just drones in general. And we had him come out and take drone footage and like make maps of our pumpkin patch so that we could come up with a more accurate planting plan for this year. Another thing would be we have a girl who wants to be a teacher. So she's the one leading at the pumpkin stand right now and leading the different kids activities. And so just different things like that. Like I'm a poli-sci major, so I go to the different water meetings and things like that, but I still work out in the farm and run equipment. Yeah, we've had a couple guys who wanted to be equipment operators. So they're the ones in charge of running our bobcats, our tractors, the four-wheelers, and making sure that that's all set up and working when we open. So yeah, that's one thing I want to point out. The ag industry is not as homogeneous as most people make it out to be. It's really its own world and a whole, just a myriad of career opportunities that I think that so many people, just a diverse population of people can fit into and work together to make it, honestly, make it amazing, the amazing industry that it is.
That's a really good point, Mary Pat. Thanks for sharing all that, because I mean, that's the one thing with farms is that's our main goal, is for you guys to see that, you know, raising pumpkins, it's not just the raising pumpkins, it's everything else that Mary Pat just talked about that goes into that. So thanks for that. Did that spark any questions? Does anybody have anything else they'd like to ask or comment on? No. Okay. Well,
I
thanks
just want
so
to throw
much.
this out there. If anybody wants to come out and help out with any part of the process, whether it's planting, groundwork, harvesting, or managing the stand, just let me know. My number is 530-701-6345, and I'm sure Ms. Baker can give that to you or put you in contact.
I will be happy to share that information with you. Speaking of, you said planting. We didn't ask. When do you guys plant your pumpkins? What's a growing season for a pumpkin?
So we have a much different planting schedule than most pumpkin patches because we have such a crazy variety, such a crazy group of varieties. So for our giant pumpkins, for example, we plant in middle of May. Our Cinderella pumpkins, we plant late May. And then we have every single week in June, like a specific planting schedule. So we'll plant, I guess, like the orange pumpkins, we'll plant a few in the first half of June and then a few in the second half of June of each variety of orange pumpkins. That way we have some that are ready in early October and some that are ready in late October. So it's a weird system, but we found that it ends up working out all right.
That's great. Perfect. Well, thanks, Mary Pat. You're welcome to stay on with us if you'd like. I'm going to kind of go over their kit again. Thank you so much for your time and all your expertise about pumpkins, and also for donating the pumpkins. That was amazing. I'm sure everybody is thoroughly enjoying that. The ones that I got to speak to when I was delivering pumpkins were so excited. I actually had one girl tell me that her mom doesn't even let them go buy pumpkins. So that was amazing that she's getting that experience this year and getting to have her pumpkin, and whether she carves it or just wants to bake the seeds or bake the pumpkin, whatever be. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks, Mary Pat.
Thank you, Mary Pat.
Bye.
All right, so the rest of you, while we're still on here, I'm gonna go over, I have one of your kits right here. So we're gonna kind of go over what you guys received in your kits this year. First, I hope you guys all saw that we've got your Zoom etiquette posters. I think they turned out really nice. I think all these rules apply not only to our farms meetings, but across the board for those of you that are doing Zoom meetings, and whether you're at the high school level or whether you're at the professional level, I think every single one of those rules is something to really focus on and take into consideration and make sure you are doing. All right, so as we dig in our bag, did everybody get their snacks? Has anybody actually eaten pumpkin seeds here? Who can give me a thumbs up? You guys have reactions? Yeah, thumbs up. Yes, eaten pumpkin seeds, or no, never had pumpkin seeds. Okay, no, oh, Aiden's never. Okay, you guys have your snack bags with you? Or did you already eat them? No, that's all right. Okay, so in this snack bag, you have dried cranberries, roasted cashews, almonds, walnuts, and pumpkin seeds. Do you know what ones are the pumpkin seeds? What color were they? Who can unmute themselves and tell me? Sorry, who was that?
Me.
Go ahead, Diana, sorry.
The green ones.
The green ones, did you like them?
Yeah, they were good.
They're pretty good, huh? So I am gonna tell you though, and maybe I should have made Mary Pat stay on for this. When you roast your pumpkin seeds out of your pumpkins, they're not gonna be green. It's kind of interesting. So I'd be curious, maybe I'll have to ask her and report back to you guys what kind of pumpkin gives you a green pumpkin seed. But yes, okay, so of course, we all got pumpkins, kind of a variety of sizes. I had to pick pumpkins for one. I had to fit 40 of them in my car. For two, they had to fit in a bag. So then you all got some sort of kit carving, whether it was this one or just a scooper, and this one, it looks like this, had a knife and a scooper. Then you all received a cookie sheet, a baking sheet, so you can bake your seeds. And lastly, there was kind of a little paper that talked about the best way to get the strings off the pumpkin seeds. So I know I've asked if you've eaten pumpkin seeds. Who at home has roasted their pumpkin seeds before, or has your mom roasted your pumpkin seeds? Yes, Hannah, Miss Cannon has. Well, Aiden has not. Oh, you have a lot of things. Lorena, you've never done. Diana, no pumpkin seed roasting? Okay. No, Allison, no for you either? Wow. Well, this is gonna be fun. So once, the way you guys are gonna do this, you guys wanna work on your pumpkins right now, or do we want me to just kind of go through it and then you guys can send me pictures? Yeah?
Can we work on it?
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you want to get your pumpkins out, and get your pumpkin.
All right,
And
give
the
me a
first
second. I'll be right
thing,
back.
huh?
Give me a second. I'll go get it.
Okay, go get it.
Do we have to work on it right now, or can we just watch and work on it later?
You can watch and work on it later, but I want you to send me a picture later of you working on it.
I will.
Okay.
Can I get the code to the Remind? Because on the Remind app, it asks for a code.
Oh, yes. Yep. If you scroll up in the chat, can you see it in the chat? Oh, hang on. You
That's
probably want
just-
the other one. Yes, I'll get it to you. Give me just a second.
Okay.
Yep. Oh. So I think our code, sorry. Loren, are you ready? Okay, the code is F36EC4. I think. Let me know if that doesn't work. All right, Aiden, you got your pumpkin? Okay. So you've all got your pumpkins. Yep. Now you need to choose, get out your little pumpkin carving knife. Utensil, we'll call it a utensil. I kind of thought twice when I gave you guys these at school, some of school. I was like, oh no. So the key to cutting the top off your pumpkin is to not cut it straight. If you cut straight down, your top is just gonna fall square down into your pumpkin. So you need to cut the top at an angle so that as you cut through, it's not gonna fall down. It has something to like catch it. So you kind of just have to put it through and then cut it at an angle, however big you want your top, okay? Okay, so just go ahead and cut the top off your pumpkin. You can make them square, you can make it round, whatever's easy for you. Always make it kind of an odd shape so it's easier to remember what way it goes in. Okay. So then, voila. See how it's kind of at an angle? So when I put it back on, it doesn't just fall in. Okay. So, all right. So now you can just set that like on your cookie sheet maybe. And you can get your scooper out. You're gonna get your scooper out. You're just gonna kind of scrape the inside of your pumpkin. I guess that's the other trick, is making the top big enough that you can get your hand down in it. And then go to my computer. Okay, so, and you can literally just pull out your seeds and your goo. And that was on that thing. I found it really interesting. I hadn't really ever paid attention to the easiest way to get the strings off your pumpkin seeds. But if you put them in like a colander or in like a bowl, something to rinse them, you'll be able to just rinse them under cold water and the strings will kind of just release off. You're gonna wanna scrape all of that, like the stringy fibrous stuff out of your pumpkin so that it'll make it easy for carving. And that way you can have all the seeds out so that you can roast them. That's the best part. All right. So as you clean out your pumpkin, just yeah. I know it's kind of a gross feeling. Nice job. There you go, Hannah. See you all. Good job. So one thing that you're gonna find is, so some of the pumpkins, and I think maybe it has to do with variety of pumpkins, some of them seem to have a lot more seeds than others. And I feel like some of the ones that we've gotten for my kids don't have as many seeds as they used to have in them. So I don't know now if they're breeding these carving pumpkins more for just those flat design and they're not quite as seedy as I feel like they used to be. You guys are welcome to unmute yourselves and actually like converse.
Once you get the strings and the seeds like separated, are you supposed to wait until the seeds dry before you put them in the oven?
You don't need to. So once you get your seeds out and your strings separated, you're going to kind of want to salt them probably so that they have a little better flavor, or at least some. So you're going to put your oven on 400 degrees. Then you can either just sprinkle salt on them, or you can soak them in salt water, because then the seed will actually absorb the salt and it won't just be a salt on the outside. It'll be kind of a saltier flavor throughout your whole seed, which I hadn't even ever thought of doing that. So I'm gonna have to try that this year. So no, and you're just gonna lay them out on your cookie sheet, and you're gonna pop them right in the oven, just like they are. Don't cover them or anything. And depending on the size of your seeds, they could roast in as short a time as like 5 minutes, but sometimes it'll take 15 or 20 minutes. And I think depending on kind of how wet they are, you know, how long it takes for them to kind of dry out. If you've soaked them in salt water, it might take a little bit longer. They might be a little more moist. But no, you do not have to dry them before you roast them. So the oven will bake the water right off of them. So.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a specific time of year that's the best time for planting pumpkins?
Well, I think that Mary Pat was just saying that depending on the variety of pumpkins, some of them have a little bit shorter growing. The giants, they plant earlier in like May. But she also told me while I was out there that the little miniature pumpkins take as long as the giants actually fully mature. So she said they plant in May so that they're ready in October. So I guess it depends on when you want your pumpkins to be ripe. I'm sure would depend on when you would need to plant them. So, yeah. So the other thing you'll find on this little sheet of paper, as we're talking about our pumpkins, nutrition facts on them. Always kind of interesting. I guess you don't sometimes think about these little seeds having being good or bad for you. But I say looking at those nutrition facts, it was interesting to see how much protein a pumpkin seed has. So apparently 1 cup of pumpkin seeds has about 12 grams of protein. So those are good snacks for you guys. You're looking for a quick snack and you're getting kind of like a piece of cheese, something that is going to give you a little energy. So anyhow, how you guys doing? How's your cleaning out of your pumpkins coming? Mine's getting pretty close. So once you get it all carved out, you can either save your seeds. That's another thing. You could put them in just like a Ziploc baggie in your fridge if you wanted until a little later. I wouldn't leave them out. You wouldn't want them to start growing. I wouldn't leave them in your fridge for more than like a day before you roast them. But then all the other stringy stuff, I don't know if you've got chickens. My chickens love all that kind of stuff. So once you get it pretty well cleaned out, I don't know, might be hard to see. Then you can either, nice job, Aiden, look at yours, good job. You can just grab a permanent marker, draw your face, or just have at it, freehand it, decide what kind of carving you would like on yours. You're gonna do just a traditional jack-o'-lantern, or if you have something fun up your sleeve. I have to say, my son, we went to get him, he chose some funny looking gourds, and he like stuck some funny looking gourds as its arms and these little ones as its eyes, and it was kind of funny what they come up with. So yeah, so just keep at it. Diana, you're looking a little confused at your pumpkin there. Did you get it cleaned out? What was that, Aiden?
Do we have to take out the seeds of this?
Oh yeah. The best thing to do with that is actually to take your knife and is to actually just cut. I don't know if you can see. Kind of cut, don't make it super short, but just cut that bottom portion off so it'll be nice and clean. So, see that? So then it's kind of flat and nice. There you go. Good job, Aiden. Perfect. Oh. I slingshot mine across the table here. Oh. All right. Okay. Well, I know some of you have to go. We're coming to our hour, and I don't want to keep you if you've got other things to do. I just do want to say thanks, guys, so much for joining me. I hope today was kind of fun. I feel like we've not ever done a pumpkin field day, but actually California is one of the leading pumpkin growing states. Indiana is the #1 pumpkin growing state. Yes, Aiden?
California is actually one of the most top producers in agriculture in America.
Yes, in agriculture for sure. I was just talking specific to pumpkins. We actually are one of the
It doesn't
leading
specialize in pumpkins, it specializes in oranges and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Of course,
Yeah.
it has producers of pumpkins, but Indiana's in the lead mostly because it has more pumpkin farmers there.
Sure. Cool. Well, yeah, but kind of fun for us to, explore these specialty crops that we actually grow. And, oftentimes we wonder. But the other interesting thing for me to look at, so thinking of our little snack mix, these seeds are so much bigger than those little seeds that are in our little snack mix. So, yeah. So those of you that would like to keep working on your pumpkins, I'll stay on with you guys. And I'd love to see your pumpkin when it's done. Those of you that are gonna skedaddle off, send me a picture either through Remind, or you guys can email it to me or text it to me. I'd love to see you with your pumpkin, or your pumpkin if you can't get somebody to take a picture of you with your pumpkin. But I would love to see these finished products and or your pumpkin seeds, and give me a little review of what you think of some pumpkin seeds. I think it would, like I said, all be fun. So. All right, well, I'm gonna, like I said, I'll stay on, and those of you that want to keep carving with me, we can keep at it, and those of you that have got to go, I hope you have a great day.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.